Greetings and welcome to the Faith and Firearms Project. My name is Michael Chan. The Faith and Firearms Project, we study the intersection of guns and religion in America. And to that end, we have the opportunity to hear from an MDiv student, that is a person who's pursuing a Master of Divinity. He wants to be a pastor within the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, otherwise known as the ELCA. You're going to hear from him about his own thoughts on faith and guns. I hope you enjoyed that interview. If you have other suggestions about books or people that I should be talking about or giving attention to, make sure to contact me. The email address is faithandfirearms007@gmail.com. Additionally, feel free to leave comments in the video section, in the comments section of the video. Make sure that your comments are civil, respectful. If you have critical remarks to make, we would welcome those as well. And in particular, make sure that whatever critical remarks you might have, make sure that you make an effort to substantiate those comments with evidence. Now let's turn to the interview. Thanks for watching. Good morning, Kelly, and welcome to this interview.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is an interview as part of the Faith and Firearms Project. Thank you for agreeing to do it. Will you just introduce yourself to us? Tell us a little bit about what you do, who you are, where you are in life right now.
All right, my name is Kelly France. I am a Masters of Divinity student at Luther Seminary. I'm on my internship year, and I have one more year before I graduate. Is there...
Congratulations! No, that's great. You're near the end of the road in terms of your education. Did you come here straight out of college?
No, I did 2 years of Lutheran Volunteer Corps in Wilmington, Delaware before I came here.
Okay. Kelly, what was... you contacted me, I think, after hearing about the project through Facebook.
Yeah.
Is that right? What was interesting to you about this?
Well, I grew up being a gun owner.
Where again?
In western Nebraska.
Western Nebraska, okay.
And I still own guns. I've also lived in Wilmington, Delaware, and in Omaha, where gun ownership took on a very different look, and I've had different experiences, so I figured I would come and talk with you.
Yeah, and did your upbringing involve hunting? Was it?
Yeah, my family is really into turkey hunting.
Okay.
And then we did some deer hunting. I also, guns were part of my job when I was growing up. I did a lot of work in the pasture, fixing fence, that sort of thing, and we carried guns with us in case there were rattlesnakes or rabid animals, etc. So.
Sure, so as a kind of pest control measure.
Yeah.
Kelly, here just a couple of general questions. Will you talk a bit about what it means for you to be a Christian?
Being a Christian to me is trying to live into the community of God's kingdom on earth, and to really just follow Jesus, discern where you're being called, and do that. I'm Lutheran, so go with that as well.
Yeah, and you will also, I guess, part of your Christian life also involves leading other people.
Yeah.
In this this kingdom of, or in these Christian communities.
Yes, hoping to become a pastor, hoping to, and the reason I want to become a pastor is I enjoy I want to be part of the discernment process with the communities that I'm in to find out where God's calling them.
Yeah. This is a little bit off topic, but related to ministry. Do you think that guns would ever have a role in ministry for you? Could you imagine that happening?
It depends on where I'm at. In my current congregation, there is a few people who are part of the shooting club. So they go weekly to shoot clays or targets, what have you, and it really just depends on where I'm at and what the congregation is like. I'm open to pretty much whatever.
Sure. Has it ever caused tensions in your congregation? The fact that you might participate in shooting sports or with congregation members?
It hasn't yet. I can easily see a situation where it would. but to date, no tensions have been brought up.
When you think about God, and you're a theology student, so I know you have some sophisticated ways of doing this.
I occasionally think about God.
What are some of the ways that you imagine? How do you imagine God in your mind? What are some things that come to mind as you think about God?
I feel like I try not to use like physical imagery when I think about God. I feel that God is always seeking out, calling, and trying to be in relation with people. The parables of the lost coin and the lost sheep are really heavily make up my image of who God is, what God does. So that's the desire to be in relationship, communication with all of creation. So.
Okay. You spoke a little bit about your youth with guns. Will you kind of, if possible, give us kind of your own history with guns?
Absolutely.
Maybe when you first encountered them, how your enthusiasm for guns sort of developed as you up to this point in your life.
Yeah. So my dad's always had guns, and not like a huge collection, but probably the first encounter I've had was when he took me hunting, and I wasn't carrying a gun, but I was about 6 years old. We were walking through the prairie turkey hunting. I was standing behind him, but that was my first experience with people using guns. I got my first gun when I was 12, 22 Ruger long rifle. I currently own 4 guns, 2 shotguns, 1 rifle, and 22 pistol. Just nothing heavy, just hobby guns, turkey hunting, that sort of thing. When I go deer hunting, I borrow from people. My enthusiasm for guns has, I was very into it in high school, where I had easy access to hunting ground. My friends and I would go out and go target shooting, that sort of thing. As I moved to urban areas, I haven't been able to so much keep that enthusiasm up. And it's just, I don't feel comfortable having guns in my house where I'm at in the Twin Cities. I don't feel like there's a situation where that would be beneficial.
So as it stands now, the issue of personal defense and guns, how do you kind of think about that?
When I think about personal defense, I'm admittedly a klutz. I don't see myself being in a position where having access to a firearm in my house, if somebody were to break in, would end beneficially for myself or my wife. So I would just as soon not have a firearm in the house and just not create that situation. I don't know how I could deal with myself if I were to take somebody's life, and having a gun in the house and having somebody break in the middle of the night they would be more likely to find the gun than I would if I was woken up. So personal defense isn't something that I really equate with gun ownership.
Well, that brings us actually to the next question. What then do guns represent to you?
To me, guns they're tools. I also have a lot of carpentry experience. I view guns the same way I view a circular saw or a impact driver. I mean, there's a proper way to use it. There's a proper place that they should be used. But if you use it irresponsibly, it's going to end up damaging yourself or somebody else.
Do you think you'll teach your kids, if you have kids in the future, will you teach them how to use guns?
Absolutely. I feel like it's really beneficial, and it gives you a sense of responsibility if you have that responsibility instilled in you. It helps you in having familiarity with a gun, helps you to be able to have a clear thought process, because odds are at some point they're going to encounter a gun, whether it's in my house or with their friends. So teaching them that it's a tool and not a toy, or not a means to power, is something that would be really important for me to instill in kids.
I need to inject here an opposing voice. I'll attempt to inject a kind of, or maybe a critical question is maybe one way of
By all means.
How would you respond to somebody that looks at you as a pastor and says, what does a pastor need with guns? I mean, aren't guns killing devices? What does a pastor need with guns?
Well, guns can be killing devices. So can a lot of different things. My connection with guns, and I can't speak for every pastor, my connections with guns is that they are part of my childhood. They're part of who I am. They helped form me. So holding on to that helps me to maintain a connection to my family, to where I'm from, to my friends there. As far as specifically a pastor, I don't think that, outside of military and police, I don't think that any profession is either pro or doesn't need guns. It's just a matter of personal preference. I feel as a pastor you have a responsibility to, be responsible with your guns, to keep them safe, keep them out of negative situations. But at the end of the day, I don't view that as being exclusively the role of a pastor to yes or no on guns.
And then finally, a related question, what do you think people might misunderstand about you as a gun owner? People who might be critical of this lifestyle that you have, or this enthusiasm that you have, what might people misunderstand?
I feel one thing that a lot of people equate gun ownership with being all about self-defense or the desire to take somebody's life. That's nothing that I experience. For me, gun ownership is just a means to the end of a hobby for hunting. I used it, like I said, when I was working, or target shooting, but outside of that, I don't have any malice intent with my guns. And I feel like, especially in our culture, people just automatically equate gun ownership to the extreme of gun ownership. So if you have a gun, clearly you want to do harm to somebody, you're just waiting for somebody to break into your house at night, that sort of thing. And I feel like that's a conversation that needs to happen, is that people just participating in something does not mean that you go to the extreme of that culture.
How would you, so you talked about a little bit about the extreme right there, you kind of gave us a little glimpse into that maybe somebody who is anxious to kill or to harm. How else do you think about extremes within this particular conversation in America? Like, what are the extremes on the different sides of this debate?
There's several extremes. There's, as I mentioned, the desire to kill somebody. There's the extreme on the other side that all guns are evil and we should melt them all down and turn them into something useful. There's also the extreme, and this is where it gives me a theological hiccup, is using guns as an idol. So if you fetishize guns, if you put your life's work into only acquiring more guns, if it cuts you off from participating in your family and your society and your community, if it puts a barrier between you and God, then you shouldn't be collecting guns. But that's the same as with any other hobby. You can do the same with woodworking tools, you can do the same with Pokemon cards if that's your thing. But when it's gun ownership, it takes on a different role because there is such a strong feeling in the national conversation about that.
That's fascinating, Kelly. Thank you.